All right, today we're going to dive into a fundamental right that you have, and it's all about strength in numbers. We're talking about the right to association. It's the legal power behind every union, every protest, and every community group. And trust me, it's way more impactful than you might think. You know that feeling, right, where you've got a really great idea or maybe a serious concern about something, but it just feels like you're shouting into the wind? Yeah, it's a common feeling. That one single voice can just get completely lost in all the noise. See, one person speaking up is kind of like a whisper. But when a whole lot of voices join together, they become a chorus. And a chorus, well, that's pretty much impossible to ignore. This simple but really powerful idea is what's behind the right we're talking about today. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at why one voice often needs some backup. Then, we'll get into what the right to unite actually is and how it gives you power, both at work and out in public. We'll also cover the super important rules of the game before we zoom out to see the delicate balance this right creates in a democracy. You know, this whole power of we thing, it's not just some nice feel-good idea. It's a foundational right. It's the actual legal framework that lets people officially team up to go after a shared goal. At its heart, the right to association is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's your constitutionally protected freedom to form or join groups with people who are into the same things as you, whether that's a book club, a neighborhood watch, or, as we're about to see, a labor union. And get this, the Philippine Constitution does more than just allow this right, it actually encourages it. The state is literally tasked with helping these groups grow because they're seen as being vital for the whole nation's well-being. So forming a group isn't just your right, it's actually seen as a public good. Okay, so nowhere is this right put to the test more often than in the workplace. This is where that power of we can create some of the most real, life-changing results. In a job setting, this big, broad right gets a much more specific name. It's called the right to self-organization. This is what gives you the legal freedom to start a union, join one that's already there, or even just help out with what they're doing. So what does a union actually do? I mean, it's not just about hanging out together. It's about organizing for a very, very specific purpose. The union's number one tool is the collective bargaining agreement, or CBA. The easiest way to think about it is as a master contract that's negotiated for everybody. So instead of every single employee trying to bargain for a raise or better safety on their own, the union negotiates for the entire group, covering the whole shebang, from wages and benefits to job security. And you better believe the law takes this very seriously. When a company tries to interfere with, hold back, or pressure employees who are just trying to exercise this right, that's not just a bad move, it's an unfair labor practice. And that's a specific legal violation with some very real consequences. But you know, this right doesn't just stop when you clock out. It actually extends way out into our public squares, our streets, and our communities. And out there, it looks a lot like assemblies and protests. Yeah, this is where the right to association and the freedom of speech kind of team up. It protects your ability to gather peacefully in public to make sure your voice is heard, whether you're celebrating something, protesting, or formally asking the government to fix the problem. Now here's the thing. While you have the right to assemble, it's not a total free-for-all. In most public spots, like streets or plazas, you need to get a permit. The goal there is just to make sure public safety and order are maintained. But in special designated freedom parks, that rule goes out the window. Those places were created specifically to get rid of the red tape, shifting the whole priority to maximizing free speech. No permit needed. And that brings us to a really important point. As powerful as all these rights are, they are not unlimited. They exist inside a legal framework with very clear rules of engagement that everybody, from the unions to the government, has to follow. Look, to keep things from getting chaotic and to make sure disputes are handled fairly, the law lays out some very specific procedures, and this is especially true for the most powerful tool a union has, the strike. You can't just wake up one morning and decide to walk off the job. There's a process. For a strike to actually be legal, there's a very specific three-step playbook you have to follow. First, you have to file a formal notice of strike with the government. That kicks off a cooling-off period for any last-ditch negotiations. And finally, the strike itself has to be approved by a majority of the members in a secret ballot vote. That makes sure it's what the people really want. And that cooling-off period we just mentioned, it's usually 30 days. That's not just some random number. It's a legally required pause button. The whole point is to force everyone to de-escalate, to get both sides back to the negotiating table for one last shot at a peaceful solution before taking the huge step of stopping work. So that leads to a pretty big question, right? What happens if a group just ignores these rules? The consequences for an illegal strike are, well, they're severe. And they don't just affect the union as an organization, they can hit every single person involved. And here is the absolute bottom line. If a strike is declared illegal, or if workers defy a direct order from the government to go back to work, they can legally lose their jobs. We're not talking a small fine here. This is the ultimate consequence. And it really shows just how much responsibility comes with wielding this powerful right. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what you see is this really delicate balancing act, one that's absolutely fundamental to how a democratic society works. It's like this constant negotiation between three big ideas. You've got an individual's freedom, you've got a group's collective power, and then you have the government's need to keep things peaceful and orderly for everyone. The law is always trying to find that sweet spot right in the middle of all three. At the end of the day, the right to association is an incredible tool for empowerment. I mean, it levels the playing field and it lets everyday people stand together and challenge some really powerful interests. But it's a tool that has to be handled with care, and it demands that everyone involved is committed to playing by the rules. And that leaves us with a huge question for today's world. In this age of social media, where a protest can be organized in minutes, where exactly is the line between a rightful protest and a public disruption? As we all keep using this fundamental right, figuring out where that line is, well, that's a challenge for all of us. Thanks for joining this explainer.